Viserys Targaryen here, and I just wanted you to know, Christmas is coming.
Let's kick into our first topic. So first topic is going to be on Euron, like the Horn theory. So we're going to talk about Dragonbinder and the Horn of Winter. So again, let's start with, I guess, the Horn of Winter, because it's closer to where Euron is at this point, and I think it will have more effect actually on Euron's story. So the Horn of Winter, we don't really know where it is. It's not been confirmed. We're really speculating. But I think the way that I interpret this is George puts this heavy emphasis on this broken horn that Sam has. Why would he keep doing that if it didn't have some sort of relevance to the story? And that's the thing I keep coming back to, because it just comes up randomly. Like Feast for Crows, right? When Sam is selling all of his possessions to get money and bravos, the horn comes up as being one of his last possessions that he does not sell. Well, why would George bring that up if it wasn't important to the story? Why would George have Sam bring this horn with him if it wasn't important? And then you also pair that with, okay, of all of the places to Sam to go, he's going to the place where we see Euron, who also has apparently a knowledge with horns, having Dragonbinder. It seems very interesting, right? That we see Euron and Sam are likely going to meet each other at some point. And then we're sitting here and we're going, okay, well, how does the wall come down? Right? Like, it's not, I highly doubt it's going to be something like we saw in the show where it's just a dragon and it just blows the wall down. That doesn't really seem to make any sense. But at the same time, how do we get south of the wall? We know it has to happen. Something has to happen to allow the others to get through. It doesn't seem like they're just going to go around the wall. That doesn't really make sense. And also, when you have a time-sensitive thing where it's like you can't wait a whole nother book for them to go around, it just doesn't make any sense. So something has to happen in which a part of the wall either loses its magic or it breaks, or something has to happen. And when we look at all of the theories that I think you point to, I think the idea that Euron, in his sack of Old Town, or this fight, he encounters Sam, and maybe he recognizes this horn as being more than what it is. And that maybe he blows it, maybe he just takes it and then pieces it all together later. I think we're all kind of leading to an idea of Euron being kind of the idea of the apocalypse. Something that me and Ricky on the Voice of Old Town channel talked about was the idea of, like, Euron is kind of what the show's Night King was, but he's not the Night King. Where the Night King was bringing an apocalypse, a plague, more or less, onto the land, okay? And Euron is somewhat doing that in the way that he could create the others to come south. He's attacking knowledge and the history or culture of Westeros and Old Town, similar to what the goals that were stated in the show with the Night King kind of were. We didn't really get much of it, but that's, the whole idea there. So I do find that to be kind of an interesting idea for Euron. And so let me know what you guys think, like, in the comments or the chat. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys think there's another way the wall could come down? Do you think maybe there's a different Horn of Winter, that it's not the one that Sam has? If Sam has it, do you believe maybe it goes in a different direction? But yeah, is Euron really important to the story, and what is it meant for now that he just took 4 islands and sent Victarion? Okay, so the way I would look at this is the shields is basically a death trap, right? Like, Euron, or not a death trap, but the people that are manning those islands, it doesn't look good for them, right? A lot of the people that he gives those islands to are not really loyal to Euron. They were loyal to other people, right? So again, one of them we see is one of Victarion's, like, upper, I think it's Newt the Barber, I believe is his name. But he's one of the people that is given one of the islands. And it seems like these islands are basically going to be fodder. Like Euron is using that to get the armies to go there to retake them so he can go other places. A lot of what Euron's strategy looks like right now for me is, like, he's attacking here so that he can move here. So forces are occupied over there, but they're not occupied over here. Right? So, like, if he was going to attack Highgarden, well, if the forces are worried about the shields, the Arbor, or Old Town, he can move his forces, then take Highgarden, because there's no forces there. So that's kind of where I think he's maneuvering right now. But the idea of Victarion kind of going over to Dany and all of that, like, I think Euron, I'm still uncertain as to what his goal there is, because I think Euron has to know that Victarion is going to betray him. Or maybe Euron just trusts that Victarion won't, right? That Victarion will be that loyal brother to him like he was to Balon, and he just blindly trusts that. It kind of feels weird that he would do that, given that I think he's a very cunning person. But I think the significance there is like maybe Euron is planning that Victarion is going to get stupid and he's going to blow the Dragonbinder, or someone will in his name, and that will give the dragon to Euron. I don't like that theory, personally. But you know, Euron does seem like he wants to bring destruction and rule what's left. The easiest way would be to bring a greater enemy. Yeah, and another thing that would help Euron here, given that Euron knows he does not have the advantage on land, right? Like, he doesn't. And so the way you counter that is you bring in another force. Now, we don't know what extent that Euron has on the others. We don't know his knowledge to the extent of that. But if that was to play, Euron would know that, like, this force would draw the rest of the living, that he could take over what's left. And so that's very like Cersei thinking when you think about when it comes to the show, right? Where Cersei was just like, let's just let all their forces die and we'll deal with what's left. That's what Euron could be thinking here, right? And that's not out of character. I think that makes a lot of sense for Euron. How do you think Euron will be beaten? I think it's going to be a combination of things. I really liked the idea of Bran and Euron having kind of these like warging battles or kind of mental battles as he grows in power, but also there's going to be a combination of other things, right? I think Euron and the threat of Euron probably will be dealt with after the others, more than likely. So it's going to be a combination of that and the forces of like whatever's left of Dany and Jon's coalition, even young Griff as well. I don't see the wall falling, but I could see it being overtaken, especially if the Night's Watch, Wyling, and Stannis' men kill each other. An unguarded structure is a vulnerable structure. That's a great point. Like, so my question would be, okay, so if we're going off of that idea, right, Maz, how do you think that happens? Do you think it's just the others come up to the gates, say at like Castle Black, and they just bust on through? Or do you think maybe because of the some dead giants, or there's this or that, and we just see them break through? Like, that's very possible. We could definitely see that. I think that's an interesting observation. I could definitely see it. But I just it doesn't make any sense when you look at Euron's plan with Victarion. It's like, either way, right? Victarion was going to ally. Also, hi Casper, and you are good. If you look at the situation there, Euron had to know that Victarion was going to just go to Dany's side, try to marry her, whatever. So he just gave up a part of his fleet. Like, there was no situation, in my opinion, where that fleet was not going to come back. Like come back and still be with Euron. Do you think Dragonbinder actually works? All the information we have is from Euron, including his oarsmen dying. It could be all lies from him. Yeah, so let's kind of transition now to kind of the Dragonbinder stuff. So Dragonbinder is a weird one for me, because we have literally nothing to prove that it actually works. Like, nothing, right? Like, Euron has nothing he can justify by saying, oh, this worked at one point. Like, no, the only dragons are Daenerys's. So we have no idea if this actually works. We know it has some really weird side effects. Like, we know that from blowing it. We don't know what those entail. Like, for all we know, if Victarion blows this horn, or someone around him blows this horn at Marine, it could just infuriate the dragons. Like, that's really what it could be. Like, I don't know how this horn is just instantly going to make the dragons go under the blower's control, or how that even works. Like, there's so many questions, because we could eventually just find out that Euron is a fraud. Like Euron is saying all these things and winning over the Ironborn, but in reality, like, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He's a fraud, more or less. So that is a big possibility. Now, if Dragonbinder is used, I don't think it's going to have the effects that Euron thinks it's going to. Because Euron, I also talked about this a lot on a collab, but I don't think it makes sense for Euron to get a dragon. I think already Euron's going to be possibly getting some Krakens. And I don't mean like under his control, but like he'll summon them for this battle with the Red Wine Fleet. I don't think like he's going to have a Kraken army. And I just don't think it makes sense to give him a dragon, give him all these other things. I don't think that's the way things go. But at the same time, I do think Dany needs to get nerfed a little bit. I think Dany needs to not have all three dragons, right? I get why George would do it, because it would really parallel Aegon the Conqueror, and that's kind of a lot of the themes between Aegon and Dany are quite the the same, and they are very similar in a lot of ways. But for the story, like, it wouldn't feel as interesting, because George would have to find ways for this conflict to be interesting, unless he's just making it to where it's like Aegon, where it's like he's just gonna really roll over them all, or she's gonna roll over all of them. I don't know. I just don't. I don't agree with that. And so the way we look at the story right now is how do we have that not happen? And the ways I think that maybe couldn't happen is we either see a dragon dying. We could see maybe one of these dragons going to someone like Young Griff. Again, we know Young Griff, probably regardless, is going to have dragon blood. He could tame one. That is a very high possibility. We know that Dany is struggling to even control the dragons, even Drogon to a degree, right? So I think all these things culminate, and I don't know what the Dragonbinder significance is. I think the Dragonbinder could be used as something that maybe annoy the dragons, could be used as something to get their attention, maybe even has the opposite effect. I don't know. What do you guys think on Dragonbinder?